Uzbekistan, at the heart of Central Asia, a crossroads on the ancient Silk Route linking China with Europe, shaped by trade, empire, and conquest. Under the Soviet Union, the economy ran on gas, heavy industry, and cotton. But now, as an independent country, Uzbekistan is seeking a remarkable reinvention. It wants to liberalize its economy, and the cornerstone of that liberalization is an ambitious push into green energy.
It's one of the most exciting frontier opportunities in Central Asia.
They're really a poster child for how you do this.
Every journey comes with its own challenges, but I would say those are more opportunities than challenges.
Конечно, дорого, это мне обошлось очень, но это стоило того, это стоило того. То есть у вас есть безграничное электричество почти.
We are now at the stage of, preparing for skyrocketing.
Uzbekistan is grappling with rising temperatures, water shortages, and blackouts. So its push into green energy is a race for energy security. But it's also about rebranding the country as a modern state, open to global business. In this film, we went to meet the business people, officials, and investors to find out, can Uzbekistan reinvent itself for a post-fossil fuel future? This is the capital, Tashkent. Its Soviet past is hard to miss, but the modern changes are obvious too. It's a place that was built for the industrial age, but it now embodies Uzbekistan's enthusiasm for renewable energy. Uzbekistan once relied on gas for all of its energy needs, but its population has almost doubled since the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, and economic growth is running at 6 or 7%. The Minister for Energy says the Soviet-era gas infrastructure can no longer keep up.
We have to admit that we became a net importer of the natural gas from net exporter. The reason, growth of the wealth of the people, which requires more energy, more resources, people want to have more comfortable life. This all brought and growth of the industries, processing industries, value-added products, and different sectors. This increased demand for the consumption.
With almost 85% of its oil fields depleted and gas supplies likely to run out in just 20 years, Uzbekistan has had to find new forms of energy. The question is, how do you build a clean energy system from scratch? First came the initial targets. 25% of electricity generation from renewables by 2030, and energy efficiency up by 20%. Reform began in 2018. The old Soviet-style monopoly was broken apart, with generation, transmission, and distribution supply split into separate businesses. And generation was the first to open up.
They're doing that through mostly private sector development, and that's a pretty impressive policy choice. The tariff reforms, I can't underline how important those are for the investability of the sector as a whole. I'm not talking about generation tariffs, I'm talking about consumption tariffs. Without changes there, nothing's investable.
So you want a mechanism to set the price, ideally competitive as it was in Uzbekistan, so that you know you're competing transparently against other like-minded players. You want somewhere to sell the product, power purchase agreement, and you want the buyer of your product to be creditworthy. So Uzbekistan offered all three.
With those reforms in place, Uzbekistan announced to the world it was open for business. And the first international investors to arrive came from the Gulf.
My name is Abid Malik. I'm serving Aqua as the president of Central Asia. Thinking about 2020, where we had our first project, today our committed project pipeline is $15 billion US. And that is around 11,400 megawatt of power. These are the committed projects, which are either operational, construction, or in advanced development.
The other Gulf company with a significant presence in Uzbekistan is Masdar from the UAE. They are a huge renewables company that has been on a foreign investment spree in recent years, and they were actually the first company to sign a long-term power deal with Uzbekistan. We spoke to Mazdar's head of Central Asia about their plans for Uzbekistan.
The discussion with Uzbekistan government started in 2019. We developed smaller projects, 100 megawatt solar PV in a region. As of today, we have committed over $2 billion projects. That's around 2 gigawatts of renewable energy projects, including solar PV, wind, as well as battery storage.
What we have seen that the government of Uzbekistan, after the first project we started, their reforms actually were accelerated.
But not all international capital has been so quick to commit. The state-backed Gulf funds operate under very different rules to their Western counterparts.
They're not taking out the sort of political risk insurance premiums that Western companies are doing, and they can just afford to sit tight and expend a lot of capital now and wait for 25 years or however long it will take for them to see their returns. You know, we still haven't seen the big ticket headlines of Western investors coming into the country. And until that happens, we're really not going to see much Western investment because investors are still quite nervous to take the first step into this emerging economy.
The electrification of Uzbekistan can be seen on every street. Electric cars are plentiful. BYD builds them here. And there's a growing fleet of electric buses across all major cities. Now ordinary citizens are becoming their own energy suppliers, installing cheap Chinese solar panels on their rooftops.
Меня зовут Абдурахман Юлдошев. Я работаю мастером, и я установил эти солнечные панели для личного пользования. Конечно, дорого это мне обошлось очень, но это стоило того. Это стоило того. То есть у вас есть безграничное электричество почти. На тот момент было только разрешение. А вот сейчас есть, например, поддержка сторонних банков, частных или государственных. Есть субсидии. Но я этим не пользовался. На тот момент просто это было как бы на стадии реализации. Вот, например, в течение дня при отключении электричества в краткосрочном в краткосрочном моменте обеспечения электрической энергии этого вполне достаточно в течение 4 часов. Также, если у нас солнце светит, то электричество постоянно генерируется, оно идет в аккумулятор, и с аккумулятора оно идет домой, и в течение 8-9 часов вот при обыкновенном потреблении его вот так достаточно. Это займет от 7 до 8 лет, чтобы окупить все мои инвестиции. Вот я с учетом этого сказал 7 или 8 лет, потому что он мне в месяц, в сезон, к примеру, да, то вот в течение 3-4 месяцев он приходит по $100-110 в месяц он выделяет. То есть он мои потребности компенсирует и также вот дополнительно.
It isn't just households installing solar panels. Many businesses are going green too. But it's about more than just energy bills. It's about modernization, so they can compete with the world's best.
The location of Uzbekistan, it's a unique location which was historically linked to trading, to the textiles and fabrics and garment. It was the center of the Great Silk Road. It was a crossroad of the Great Silk Road. So this is something that maybe we have in our DNA that made us to move from just the raw cotton supplier to the value-added product supplier. We were the first in Uzbekistan who made this, creating the parking environment for our employees to park their car under the shadow. At the same time, using this roof replaced by panels. So we generate the energy from renewables, which we use for our office needs at the moment. And it covers like 80% of our office needs. Our company, the Samarkand Apparel, nowadays we do produce the garment for the global brands. We are in the new project of making some sweaters, which are more complicated products and with more value added. Or we do ship the fabrics from abroad, which are not produced in Uzbekistan. We do process it and send it to Europe, United Kingdom, or United States.
Another company that has made the shift to renewables is BMB Holdings, an agricultural company that is now almost entirely powered by solar.
2016-yilgacha asosan endi bizda monokultura bo'lgan, asosan O'zbekistonda qishloq xo'jaligi yo'nalishida ko'proq paxta va g'alla qishloq xo'jaligida shu mahsulotlar ekilgan. Tan olib aytishimiz kerakki, bugungi kunda o'sha qishloq xo'jaligi sektorida barcha mahsulotlar, xususan eksportbop mahsulotlar, tannarxi qiymati yuqori bo'lgan innovatsion mahsulotlar, qishloq xo'jaligi mahsulotlari ham o'sha ekilib, nafaqat o'zimizda, balki o'sha jahon bozoriga keng eksport qilish va jahon bozoriga olib chiqish imkoniyatlari paydo bo'ldi. Bu bizga nima beryapti? Birinchidan, bugungi kunda o'sha qo'pol qilib aytganda hech kimga bir majbur emasmiz, kimgadir qarab turmaymiz. Ya'ni o'zimiz to'liq energetika bilan ta'minlaymiz. Bu bir. Undan tashqari, undan ortib qolgan elektr energiyani 2 barobar qimmatiga davlatga sotib, to'g'ridan-to'g'ri o'sha bevosita o'sha undan ham qo'shimcha daromad olish imkoniyati paydo bo'lyapti.
It became a very fancy word to say, oh, sustainability, the green economy. Nowadays, the brands or some groups of the buyers, they have a policy. So you have to have that green economy in your company at a certain level. Only then you will be able to supply them value-added products, but there are the rules that you have to play.
Bu bizga nima olib kelyaptiki, mana umuman olganda pribylnostimiz, ya'ni dohodimizni, bugundagi daromadimizni deylik o'sha 7-8% tashkil qiladigan bo'lsa, umumiy daromadimiz 7-8% tashkil qiladigan bo'lsa, albatta yashil energetikani bizga o'sha qo'llab-quvvatlashi, aynan mana shuni keng jalb qilganimizning evaziga 2-3% atrofida qo'shimcha yana daromad topish imkoniyati paydo bo'lyapti.
Generating green electricity is one part of the equation. The bigger challenge is about getting that power to the end user.
Take yourself back, 20 years back, the power plants were built around the load center, the demand center. But the wind does not blow or the sun does not shine based on the demand center. It will blow in the region where it is blowing. Sunshine will be in the region. And that's the challenge of renewable across the globe.
That makes especially the state of the grid very important, particularly for a country like Uzbekistan, where more than 60% of the grid is actually 30 plus years old. What you would traditionally use for balancing the system for flexibility, in the good old times it was gas-fired plants, and these in Uzbekistan are aging, so they're not as flexible as they would be. The next source where you'll go to is hydropower, and Uzbekistan is a country that has scarce water resources, so that is not a solution. What has emerged as a big solution for Uzbekistan at the moment is storage.
But we need a massive amount more of storage, not just through battery storage, but perhaps through pumped hydro storage, to satisfy the overall mix in the that's required for Uzbekistan in the future. From a reform and a budget perspective, this is a difficult thing to collect momentum behind, more so than a solar plant or a wind plant or a new gas-fired, hyper-efficient gas-fired power station.
That's why we have a very ambitious program on modernizing, on building the new transmission lines, new substations, more than 5,000 kilometers of high voltage only, 220, 500 kV voltage transmission lines. That's why now we're working very actively on this.
The government has turned to the generators themselves to help with the building of substations and installing much-needed transmission lines.
We've seen that Masdar, along with other developers as well, are willing now to take an expanded responsibility. So not only to focus on the development of the plant itself, but also to take responsibility in the construction of the overhead transmission line to support the grid infrastructure.
Be part of the solution. When you go to the country, you be part of the solution, you help them in developing all of that, and then this is how we did the grid line, which is one of the important constraints for the renewable sector, not only in Uzbekistan, across the world.
Encouraged by its recent success, Uzbekistan has already revised its initial targets upwards. Now it wants 54% of its power to come from renewables by 2030. It wants its first nuclear power station by 2035, and it wants to be net zero by 2050. And its ambitions are now reaching beyond its own grid and even its own borders.
Uzbekistan is developing as a market, but as the markets continue to develop further, so you move from a model where you have only one buyer to an open market like you have in Western Europe, for example, the market becomes a lot more complex.
I think it's no secret that the government does have a secondary ambition. Once they've satisfied their own needs, a longer term ambition is to become a net exporter of energy, particularly to the south, to Pakistan, to Afghanistan, and perhaps even beyond.
By 2030, we want to connect our grids with Europe through the Green Corridor, where renewable energy from Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan would go through the subsea cable, through the Black Sea to the Europe. We look even more for integration with the international market, going beyond our region and beyond our borders.
Beyond that, we're applying the lessons learned from PPPs in the energy sector to health, to irrigation, to water and wastewater, and also to education. And there are challenges in each one of those sectors, some vested interest in each one of those sectors that need to be challenged as well. So the faster the reform process takes place in each one of those sectors, the more we'll be able to attract foreign direct investment.
Not everyone shares that confidence. For some, ambition is already outrunning reform.
The Central Asian leaders today are very ambitious in terms of what they want to achieve for their countries in terms of renewables and moving away from fossil fuel dependent economies. As a seasoned Central Asia observer, I have to say sometimes you have to take these targets with a pinch of salt. You know, the bureaucracy in Uzbekistan is still very challenging at times for investors. The kind of speed of these reforms, they haven't got the human and institutional capacity to actually to deal with the projects coming online, and that's an issue that a lot of investors talk about. In some ways, it's ambitious appetite is larger than that it can actually cope with at the moment.
These are ambitious targets, but if Uzbekistan hits them, it will put them ahead of many of their neighbours in Central Asia, who still remain reliant on fossil fuels to power their economies.
They know the target that they put in place, so I'm very confident and that they would meet the targets that they have set.
Providing with supportive environment to invest in that. This is nice synergy of understanding between the government and the private sector, which brings all the country or the region in development.
Uzbekistan government recognized the necessity of providing a good climate for the next generation.
Uzbekistan has always been at a crossroads. Today, it's choosing a different path. The pace is fast. Whatever it builds, the rest of the world has reason to watch.